If you can see me, if you can see us, it can only mean one thing. It's Mental Health Monday. Good evening and welcome to another edition of Mental Health Mondays brought to you by Saving Grace Community Church and Grace House Cincinnati, a ministry and nonprofit agency of Saving Grace Community Church. I'm Pastor Trevor Phillips along with my co-host and cohort, Dr. Quentin Moss, founder and CEO and Chief Medical Officer of Modern Psychiatry. Good evening, my brother.
Good evening. Good to be here.
It's a great day to be alive.
It
So
is.
it's cold outside and we've had to bump thermostat up. It's good to be able to be in a place where we can enjoy the warmth of the indoors. We want to continue today, Dr. Moss, in our discussion about tragedy, triumph, and Thanksgiving. Three words, when you think about them, a person may not ordinarily put in a sentence or make some correlation between each other. But in this season of Thanksgiving, in this month of gratitude, it's a blessing to be able to see, though people have experienced a tragedy, they've been able to be triumphant and still find themselves in a position and posture of Thanksgiving. Tonight, we are so excited to have with us a young lady who is familiar with tragedy, and she's acquainted with being triumphant. And even in this season, despite the tragedy that her family she has had to endure, she's got a reason to be thankful. Joining us now is Deanna Mitchell. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. How are you guys this evening?
We are
Good.
wonderful. We are wonderful. We're so glad that you spending your time with us this evening. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Less than a year ago, uh, Deanna, you were residing in the Cincinnati area, and local media was saturated with a story about your loved one.
Mhm.
It was a story that left many people speechless. It was a story that left people scratching their head. It was a story that found people that were enraged and they were totally aghast at what were hearing. It was a story that sounded almost diabolical, sinister, and demonic. It was a story that gripped us and took us to a place in our minds like, how in the world could that be?
Yeah.
It is a story that in breaking the ice and having a conversation, you would in a room say, what's the worst thing could possibly happen to you? It was a story that could answer that question.
That is true.
Tell us a little bit about your experience over the last year and the tragedy that you have been enduring and presently enduring now.
Okay, not a problem. Just a nice summary of what happened because it could be very long. So last September, my nephew, Dominique Allen, was told to us that he was missing. So of course we went about everything trying to find him. I was on the news. I was talking to the police. We finally got my sister to file a missing persons report. He had been missing for maybe 15 days by the time she filed it. And they were adamant that she had to file it because he lived with her. Um, and so that was September 25th was the last date his best friend seen him. And on October 10th, she finally filed a report. And then on December the 5th, after searches and flyers and you name it, we did it. His body was found in his bedroom.
Mm.
underneath his mattress, and piles of dirty clothes.
Wow.
And that's when it started. I was already heartbroken because my nephew's a family person. He loves his family and he won't just leave. And he was actually supposed to help me move October 4th. He was supposed to come help me move from one apartment to another in Cincinnati. He reached out to me and, made sure I knew let me know he remembered. But then for his body to be found on December 5th, and then to find out his mother and stepfather were arrested and later charged with his murder. We waited 3 months before the autopsy could actually positively ID him through DNA because of how decomposed his body was. We had to cremate him. We had no choice but to cremate him. And we finally had a memorial service for him at the beginning of April of 2021. And since then, I have the custody of his sister. And so her and I band together. So I'm there for her. She's there for me to kind of help us through this situation.
Wow. Wow. What was your initial reaction when you learned that your sister, not someone down the street, not someone you didn't know, but your sister was a prime suspect? And
My very first thought was, I'm the only sibling with no kids. Why am I the only one with no kids yet? My sister took the life of my nephew. Someone who was full of life, just graduated high school in May, just turned.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
He had just turned 19 on September 1st. So for 24 days later, yep, that's me and him on his graduation in May. 24 days later, after he turned 19, he was gone.
Wow. Wow.
His sister's very sad. I didn't bring her in to talk today because she's not ready to talk about it publicly. But I was devastated. I was hurt. I had custody of them for about 5 months prior to that in like 2018. We had grown a bond together. So while I was only an aunt, I was an aunt. I was an in-house aunt. I was a second mother, a best friend. And so my heart was broken. And then for it to be my older sister, his mother, to be the one charged with his murder, that I don't even think I had words for it at the beginning. Now I just say, God, I don't know what this plan is, but I'm never going to be able to wrap my mind around it. And I'm not even going to try.
Have you had conversations with your sister after this all came out?
Nope. I have not talked to her for a lot of reasons, but mainly because I'm not ready to talk to her. To have taken your oldest child's life, and then live there for 2.5 months where his body was sitting there decomposing and hiding his body, trying to cover it up. Like, I don't know what she actually did, but the fact that she was there for 2.5 months, I can't talk to her yet. I can't.
You don't think that any of your family members is capable of doing such a heinous act, committing such a heinous act. But the U.S. Department of Justice back in the 90s compiled a study from information they got from prosecutors from 33 states. And it showed that in 2,500 murder cases involving almost 3,000 defendants and 2,600 victims, the data revealed that 6.5% of the victims were killed by spouses, 3% by parents, 3.5% by parents, 1.9% by other children, 1.5% by siblings, and 2.6% by other family members. And though it's minuscule, it's not a big percentage, it still is a percentage that shows that family members are capable of killing one another. And we don't have to go far. We were in Sunday school. I tell you that we could review the story of Cain and Abel.
Yeah. I remember that story.
Dr.
Um,
Moss, when you hear this story, when you hear Deanna share as a clinician, uh, help us and look inside the mind of someone. What could be happening that would cause a person that they would detach so much from a child that they gave birth to be a part of what may be, as the facts come out, we all may be allegedly a part of child's murder, and to allegedly be a part of a cover up. Allegedly, what could possibly go factor in a person's mental to do that?
There are many things that could be factors. And when we think about situations like this, we think automatically, some of us in the community, believe there has to be something with mental illness. It's possible, but most of the crimes that are committed, murders and assaults, are committed by people who do not have mental illness, right? So most of the crimes are not associated with someone having a mental health condition. So I don't know all the details of the dynamics between she and the person she was with, between she and her son, state of mind. I can't conjecture that, but I would like for us to, give some consideration that, a lot of these killings and murders, again, occur outside of people having a mental health condition. So to have mental illness is not necessarily a reason why some of these horrible things happen.
And I guess it would be more soothing, would be more understandable, it would be more, um, I hate to use the word accepting, but maybe palatable, easy to deal with, to say, you know what, they had some challenges and they didn't take their meds and they had some episodes and that happened. Deanna, has your sister ever been diagnosed or presented, as far as you know, have any dealings in mental illness?
Not prior to to everything going on. No, I do know that while she's at the Justice Center, they are treating her for bipolar disorder.
Okay.
But that is something that, like, she's 20 months older than me, so and in that time, she's never had anything prior to this situation.
Okay. So maybe them trying to find out as well. Um, Tell us a little bit about, if you will, how the family has been adjusting uh, to this whole crisis, this whole situation. You've alluded a little bit, how you've been adjusting, but how is the family as a whole? How has your niece been adjusting, and how have the other family members been adjusting to this travesty, this tragedy?
Right now, the family's hurt right now. It's a little hard with the holidays coming up because he won't be here again. He won't be there to fight with his sister over macaroni and cheese. That's one of the things she told me, that she's like, I just don't want to deal with the holidays because she won't be able to fight over mac and cheese with him. But we check on each other more.
Mhm,
I, I hate to say it made us closer, but it kind of did, because we check on each other more. We're, a little more there.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
but we're all still hurt, and it's
mhm,
hard for any of us to even communicate with her.
mhm,
Kenya, his mom's name is Kenya.
mhm.
It's kind of hard, and she's tried to reach out, and she knows I have Harmony, and she's tried to reach out, and I'm like, nope,
Right.
I can't. I don't have it right now. I know
Mhm,
Harmony has written her 2 letters. We have
mhm,
sent the first one.
mhm,
Harmony's kind of expressing to her mom how she feels, how it's made her feel, and how she's trying to get it out through letters.
mhm.
Um, so I let her do that, write your letter, I read it, and then we send it. If she really wants to send it, I send it, because if that's helping her, I want her to get that kind of help. But we've gotten closer because we're checking in with each other a lot more. That's what this has caused in our family, which I guess that's a good thing in a tragedy, a triumph, so to speak, that now our family's a little closer. Like, I'll even be going to Thanksgiving dinner at my brother's house because he's down here. So, and that I've usually don't have Thanksgiving dinner with them. Not a bad thing, but I usually am not with them. Um, we're not talking about me being adopted, but I'm usually like not. I didn't grow up with them,
Right.
so I'm not used to being with them for holidays. But yeah, we're closer.
Dr. Moss, you hear her, Deanna, in terms of how she's coping with this as a family. How important is it to communicate with a perpetrator or someone who's been victimized to express, particularly in these situations, or if we're not ready to have one-on-one conversations, in addition to letters being written, what are other exercises that somebody can practice to help get through something as horrific as this?
I think the letter is very effective. It's a one-way communication, but it's a safe communication, meaning the person has the ability to vocalize what they're feeling on the inside, what thoughts that they have, and those feelings will continue to change over time. As we process this a little bit more. But it is safe in that we don't have to have the face-to-face. We don't have to have the feedback. We don't have to have the interaction with the perpetrator who have done this trauma. And a lot of what we're talking about is really how do we manage, trauma. This is trauma that the young sibling has experienced, but this is trauma that the whole family has experienced. So we think of trauma as something that we see or we firsthand experience, but it is also those things that we may witness from a distance or has a direct impact on us. So communication with each other, bonding with each other is very important. But having this communication where, Deanna is able to talk to her other sibling about what's going on. She's able to talk to her niece about what's going on. And there being, no barriers or nothing held back, and we can freely, safely talk. Sometimes going graphic in what they think the person's experienced, right? Other times just talking about the emotions, but being able to verbalize that safely in the family, and then send these one-way communications, which are paced at the child's own time with her own feelings. Being able to send that safely is very helpful. We tend to suffer more when we cover up. And a lot of families, when there's trauma, nothing nearly as severe as this, we tend to try to cover up what's occurred. So then people start to then challenge their own narratives within themselves that this really happened. How can I get validated for what's occurred? No one is able to talk to me about this. Will anyone even believe me about this? But having this open communication is very helpful. So folks, start to recover and start to get some validation for this trauma that they've endured.
Deanna, your niece, obviously, still being young and impressionable, and it's a lot for adults to deal with. Can't imagine her sibling. What steps or what things have, other than the letters or in addition to the letters, have you guys done to help her push through the pain?
Well, the biggest thing is when she told me she wanted to live with me, she was choosing to be with me, is for me to let her know I got you, for me to go ahead and push to have her with me. She was comfortable with me, and she felt safe, and that was big. So the biggest thing was for me to go ahead and do that, because when she expressed to me that that's what she wanted. Sorry, I might tear up a little bit.
That's okay.
The next thing is allowing her to be herself and leaving the floor open where you can talk to me. There's no subjects you can't talk to me about. If you're angry, we can talk. If you're hurting, we can talk. Really giving her a safe space, safe place to be herself and open up. Like, so she can come talk to me at any time. She can come in my room and we'll talk. Now she knows when I'm asleep, but she can talk to me about anything. And I'm not going to judge her is the biggest thing. Like, I'm not judging her about what it is. And if we're crying together, we're hugging each other, or we just kind of go on little auntie niece dates. She calls me Auntie Mom now.
Okay. Because you've officially adopted
she gave
her,
me a
correct?
Mother's Day card this past Mother's Day. It had me in tears. But And for me to not have any biological children, it's an adjustment for me, but I wouldn't have any other way. My niece told me she wanted to be with me, so I'm gonna
Wow.
do that. She also had a counselor when she was still in Cincinnati.
Mhm.
We're adjusting down here so we can get that going again for her, so she can have
Mhm.
somebody outside of me to
Right.
talk to who can help her as well, and give her what she needs as far as just whatever avenues to help her get out of it. We also work out together or stretch together, do some activities together. We'll walk around the mall and shop or just look or whatever, just to kind of bond. Something she didn't really have with her mom. And I'll say this, I'm so glad she wasn't in that house. She
Mhm.
was actually staying with our grandmother when that happened. She had been with our grandmother for about 2 years, thank
Mhm.
goodness.
Mhm.
Um, but I wouldn't have it either way. I I I I just want her to be herself and grow into the woman she's supposed to be.
Dr. Mouse, how important it is, as you listen to you, how important it is it for a person like Harmony to be in a position, because it sounds like Deanna has done a great job to say, hey, look, I'm empowering you. You didn't have control over the fact that your brother was murdered, but I'm going to see fit that you can take control of certain aspects of your life. How important is that to someone who's been traumatized?
It's very important. Hopefully we can reduce the symptoms and challenges that she'll have over time as she gets older. The other big piece that we find is that at the age that children have their trauma, they're challenged with, maturing only up to that point,
Hmm.
meaning there is some slowed maturation that starts after that, where they
Hmm.
become delayed with a lot of our typical, milestones when we think about socialization or school attainment or just being able to interact with their peers.
Hmm.
And so this allows for her to safely being able to kind of decompress some of those emotions and hopefully continue to get professional help so that that can be managed well, that she'll continue to grow and flourish even in the midst of this great tragedy.
Now, Deanna, you have officially adopted your niece, correct?
That is correct. August 11th.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
What prompted you? Why was it important? Why was it necessary that you adopt your niece? Why was that important?
So I'll tell you a little bit about what was going on with her after we found out about my nephew.
Okay.
Her great aunt on her
Hmm.
mother's father's side,
Hmm.
two of them, they showed up. I had never met them before, didn't know who they were, and they were trying to get her.
Hmm.
So that was one thing, and then they decided
Hmm.
that maybe her dad should take
Hmm.
responsibility. And so
Hmm.
then he got brought into the picture. Of course, she didn't really have a relation with him when her brother was 4. He left. I mean, she was 1 when he
Hmm.
left. And so then there was a custody case for him to get custody of her, but she wasn't happy. She didn't feel safe. And he really wasn't, he hadn't been a father.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to blame him for anything, but he hadn't been a father. So he was trying to go and step into that role as well.
Hmm.
Um, then my niece, she came over to my house. She's like, Auntie, can I just come spend a weekend with you
Hmm.
in March? And never left.
Hmm.
So she went through that, getting to know family members she had never met or
Hmm.
that she didn't remember.
Hmm.
Um, and she went through that, and it was like, okay, but are you okay?
Hmm.
Talk to me. What's going on? So when she finally got to my house and we talked, she's like, Auntie, I just want to stay with you. And I was like, okay, then it is important for me to do this. So I made it my business to do that, because I wanted her to feel safe. I wanted her to be somewhere where she would be comfortable and get the help she needed.
Hmm.
And honestly, I wanted her to see God at work.
Hmm.
So that's the biggest thing. And of course, I have to bring this up because
Hmm.
while I can't talk to my sister right now, I
Hmm.
know that I have to forgive her. I have to
Hmm.
forgive the situation so that I can heal. And
Hmm.
honestly, Harmony needs to see that in action so she
Hmm.
can.
Wow.
And the people that she was with, I'm not sure if they would have been able to show her that or not because I didn't know them like
Hmm.
that enough to know that. But I know
Hmm.
that eventually I'll get to the place where I'm forgiving her with God's help because that's hard.
Hmm.
And then Harmony will have that example. She'll have that to see. my aunt took me in, she
Mm-hmm.
did X, Y, and Z, and was able to forgive my mom for what she did. While it doesn't excuse what she did, it
Mm-hmm.
frees the
Mm-hmm.
person who's for doing the forgiving to move on,
Mm-hmm.
with life. And I definitely want her to see that. I want her to have that example. So
Mhm.
Well,
that's
you
why I made it my business to get my niece when she expressed
well
her
you
desire.
you may not have had or birthed any children, but you've got parenting skills. I'm listening to you. I'm like,
That's
you've
true.
got more parenting skills than a lot of people. So you ought to be a plot of that, and it's instinctive. It's innate. It's in you. It's a part of you. That's a tall order, Dr. Moss, and I could speak certainly from a theological standpoint, and so could you. But from a clinical standpoint, how important is it to forgive someone who's done
Mhm.
committed such an egregious act?
She mentioned that when we forgive other people, we free ourselves more than we're doing anything for them. And to forgive, I think sometimes we think of forgiving being a feeling that we have to have a certain
Mhm.
feeling to be able to forgive. And it's not that. Even brain studies show that when we go through the act of forgiveness, it bypasses those areas that have to do with emotion. It has to be a real intentional thing. It has to be
Mhm.
something that we make a decision to do. And it
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily, feel good at the time. But when we do that, we set ourselves free from a great deal of resentment, anger, rage, ruminative thought, all these things which we know set a cascade of other symptoms. Where we're talking about increase in inflammation, increase in heart disease, believe it or not, increase in risk of cancer and
Mhm.
immune disorders. So there are a lot of psychological and physiological reasons why we should forgive, because we release those harmful emotions which then have a very negative impact on our health and our longevity. So forgiveness does a lot more for us than it does for the individual. It does set us free from a lot of things, but it is difficult, and we don't have to wait for the right moment where we feel good. It just has to be an intentional act where we can forgive and let go. Some people say, well, I won't forgive. I'll forgive, but I won't forget. Well, that means you're still holding on to something, right? That person is still holding a lot of real estate upstairs. So this is the thing. I'm going to forgive you. I'm not to condone what you did. I don't validate what you did, and what you did was wrong, but I'm going to release that from you so
So
that I
by
can be free.
so by forgiving, you're actually taking control of the whole situation,
You are.
and
You
that
are.
no longer are you being imprisoned by the experience, but as you both said, you're being set free, not because a person is deserving,
All right.
not because they you know they're worthy of it, but for your own mental, for your
Mm-hmm.
own health, taking control. That's something. The weight is taken off for you. Go ahead, Deanna.
I was just gonna say absolutely. I feel like forgiveness is key to freedom. You have to forgive yourself, things that have happened to others, to be free. I've
Mm-hmm.
done some forgiveness in my past from being adopted,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I know it's important to do, and it's definitely hard. So,
That's a
but yeah,
critical thing
absolutely.
that you said, because 6 out of 10 Americans who have had a personal experience with adoption, meaning themselves being adopted, a family member, a close friend, uh, a place they've had that experience, and many of the people who adopt uh, have been adopted themselves.
Yeah.
And then also, not telling your age, but 81% of all adoptions are made by women between the age of 35 and 44. So,
I'm in that range.
so statistically, you are right. You are right on it. And so you could identify, the importance. The beauty of adoption is that uh, in most instances, the person that is being adopted does not choose the person that adopts them. The
Right.
person that is doing the adopting chooses the person they will adopt. But in your situation, it sounds most definitely you were going to choose her to adopt, but she really chose you.
Yeah, I got
How
chosen.
special is that it was mutual?
Honestly, I feel like it showed her that somebody does want her. Because I
Mhm.
will say, I know she's talked about, feeling unwanted or, stuff like that. Certain situations, she felt like she didn't have a voice. She couldn't, say what she needed to say. And so it's definitely warms your heart. It pretty much fills it all the way up to the rim to overflowing because, wow, you're choosing to be with me, and I'm gonna choose to make that happen. Yeah, for it to be mutual, it's an amazing feeling.
Now, the court proceedings are still going on.
Hmm.
And so that's something that you all will be made aware of. Is it something that you all have to participate in, or what is your plan? What's your intention? How will you deal with that?
So I've been thinking about this for since I found out about the trial on March, at the end of March, and it's hard. I want to be there and stand firm for my nephew. I want to be there because I want them, my sister and her husband, to see my face and know that I am there and I am Dominique. I also want my niece to know that his life will live on, and she wants to go. But at the same time, I don't want to see the pictures. I
Mm.
don't want to hear what they got to say. When we got the death certificate and they said he was stabbed to death, I
Mm,
didn't want to know that. I mean, I before that, I wanted to know what happened and why. But now it's like I really don't know if I want the images in my head
Right.
or the what they're gonna do. But I feel like I'm torn because I want to be there for him, like to give him a voice because we wouldn't stop looking for him. They tried to shut us down with the search, saying he was with his dad. He wasn't with him. He was with his stepdad. He wasn't with him. And I wouldn't let it go. I needed to hear Dominique's voice to know that he was okay. And
mhm,
that's why I wouldn't let it go.
mhm,
And me not letting it go, I felt like he became at peace because we found his body. I felt
mhm.
like as soon as his body was found, he was at peace because he wouldn't have been at peace. He would have been, he would, I'd have felt like he wouldn't have been at peace. I know for a fact he's with God because of his heart. I know his heart was just he loved to laugh, joke. He loved family. He loved to help others. I know he's up there with God. I know
Yes,
God's got him.
yes, yes.
But finding his body puts that at peace, I guess for us. Because
Mhm.
I knew where he was, but us finding it puts that part at peace. Knowing that, okay, we found him. We were able to honor his life. And at some point in the next couple of years, there will be something in his name that me and my niece will work on together.
Dr. Moss, closure is important. Closure is important. And as I listen to Deanna and as we listen to her, it seems as though she understands a part of putting closure on this whole situation is the forgiveness piece. It's the accepting the truth and facts of what has happened, which is always critical when someone is grieving and recovering to acknowledge what has happened, even the gory and gruesome details. But is it essential for her to be in court, or how can she continue to advocate? Because there's a sense there, even in the death of her nephew.
It would be great if the court or the judge will allow for she and perhaps others to give testament to who this man was. To speak about what part he had in the family, the very things you just described. It'd be great if we can speak about the life that was here, that was taken. What I would caution against is being present for the details, because there's a way sometimes for some people, not all, but for some people to hear those details or to see those pictures, that we begin to re-traumatize ourselves all over again. And I think that for most of us, that's not necessary and it's not healthy. But there are ways that if you wanted to be there, that you can support him with that type of testimony we just described, or just being, outside of the courtroom and being support for the other family members who will also be there, while this is going on. That, speaks volumes of, wanting to be that voice for him, but being a voice, but being safe in trying to do that.
Deanna, as the trial is approaching, you mentioned in March, what does justice look like for you?
I want justice for Dominique. I want whatever happened to my nephew. I want whoever did it to pay that cost, whatever it was. Do I wish death penalty on anybody? No. But I want justice for Dominique, period. And that's really what the family wants. We want justice for him. I was the family contact for everything. So the police were talking to me and everything. And the prosecutor office actually has my number. And they'll, in my address, they send me what's updates. So, I just justice for him, period. Like, that's what I want. I don't wish death on anybody, but somebody has to pay for the crime of taking the life of Dominique Allen. And I hate to say it. I don't care if it's my sister or the stepfather. Somebody has to pay for his life.
Well, we've talked tonight about, the tragedy of it all. And I believe the triumphant moment is when you officially became your niece's more than a custodial guardian.
Auntie Mom.
You became Auntie Mom. That was a triumph. That was the you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good moment.
Yes.
When you became the Auntie Mom. And so in this season, tell us a little bit about Thanksgiving in this moment.
Well, Thanksgiving, my niece wants to make our grandmother's famous no-bake cheesecake.
Okay.
So we are going to make the no-bake cheesecake. We're going to have a little dinner here. But my brother is here, and we are invited to their house on Thursday. So we will go over there, be surrounded by family, and we can love on one another, and just really connect with family. I know I moved away from all of my family, but I felt like, one, I was already planning it before Harmony came with me, but she needed a fresh start somewhere else where people couldn't ask her questions about it, who didn't really know. So they gave her the power. So if she wants to tell somebody, then she can. More about giving her more control over the situation. She actually has a job. She'll be starting soon. So she's moving in the right direction. She'll go finish up school at the beginning of next year. She'll start working on that as well. Just kind of giving her that space to do that and see that she can still progress and try and be triumphant even in the midst of everything. So right now, Thanksgiving is family, me and her, and then we'll go see my brother, her uncle.
Well, if every Auntie Mom was like you, if every Auntie Mom and you had the love and the resolve to make to sacrifice and to make changes for the betterment of their niece or nephew, a lot more families will be closer and tighter. You're to be commended. Dr. Moss.
Hey, great job in what you're being able to do with your niece, and Godspeed to you. Godspeed to you.
To our viewers, we are so grateful that you join with us, and we hope, trust, and know that you were touched by the story of Dominique Allen, as related to us by Auntie Mom, Deanna Mitchell. And Deanna, we want to thank you for your transparency. We want to thank you for your realness, and open up your heart to folks that will view this, or who are watching now and will watch this show in the future as we replay it. We thank you for that. And my prayer is that God will continue to bless you and can give you the strength and the wisdom to do what obviously he's already done, called you. You didn't choose to be a mom, but I really believe that you have been called for such a time as this to be a mother to your niece. And to all of our viewers, we just want to say to you, as we always say to you from the bottom of our heart, we really, really, really desire, our desire for you is that you will feel better, that you will become better, and that ultimately you will live better. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And thanks for your time tonight.